Okay, so one quick and dirty way, or maybe not quick and dirty necessarily, but one way to affect big changes in your simulation is our old friend, the turbulence microsolver. Let's bring him back. And so what we're going to do with the turbulence, though, is instead of being applied to kind of like everything all the time, the thing before we kind of used it as kind of a gentle wind. Kind of go the opposite way in almost every respect. This time we're only going to use it quickly, like right up front, and we're going to make it not move around that much. So I'll just show you what I mean. So for example, once again, we turn the brain off. I just want to have it start. I want it to be very powerful, right up front, right when this whole simulation's just getting started. Then maybe quickly kind of peter out. We'll maybe have it come down somewhat to here, and then we'll have it go out maybe a little bit more to here. So there it is. So we kind of got this curve that starts strong and then kind of fades out. Cool. So, okay. Now another big thing is I want it to be big. I want when we visualize it, which I'll just turn on now, I want this to have really big features. The whole point, I guess I should just say, of what I want to do with this is I want to have a big shape to kind of propel different parts of the simulation in wildly different directions. I don't want it to just be one ball that kind of gradually goes up. I want some stuff to go this way. I want some stuff to go this way. We're going to get like a crazier shape. I mean, it's all going to go up in the end because of buoyancy. But with this big turbulence now, you can see it's drastically altering the shape. And that's what's nice about having such a large swirl size. So in fact, it's kind of hard to see this right now. I'm going to turn off our field here. So you can see its big features. And so just imagine, and see how kind of slow it's moving? I just imagine this was completely still. As the temperature and gas and everything else moves through this, it's kind of just going to follow these vectors around, kind of like a highway or a map. Guys that start over here will follow the map over to here. People that start over here will follow the map over to here. And maybe things that spawned up here will go this way. So we're getting an interesting shape. And what's particularly nice about this method is that there's an idea of a seed in any sort of random number generator, where changing the seed will get us a completely different result. So as you can see, it's not making anything stronger or weaker or faster or slower. It's just saying, give me a different result and start from there. For some reason, their default is 2.4. I can't imagine why, but it is. We can just say, I don't know, we'll just start it at 1, and then later on, we can drive this through a technique called wedging. When we actually cache this simulation later, instead of just caching one simulation, I can wedge this entire simulation overnight and say, you know what? Run 5 different simulations, change the seed for each one, and nothing else. Just change the seed, and then when we look at the simulation next day, we're going to have 5 very different simulations. They're largely going to be similar based on all of our other parameters, but those initial directions will be different and will yield substantially different explosions, which can be great for so many reasons. It can be great because you might have a lot of explosions in your shot that have to look similar, and there you go right there. You might also just want to choose the best explosion. You might just not know exactly what you want, but you can say, hey, Visual Effects Supervisor, here's 10 different explosions. Which one do you like the most? And then they'll say that one, and then you go with that one, and they'll be very impressed that you turned out 10 times as much work as everybody else. So that is a cool thing about wedging. Of course, you can wedge all kinds of parameters. You could wedge how much smoke is added or flame heights. You can go crazy with wedging things, and, well, you should. So while we're here, I am gonna give it a little bit more detail, in that visualize turbulence thing, just so that's a little crunchier. That's what this turbulence setting here does. As you can see, makes it a little crunchier. What else? The pulse length will determine how long it takes to go through the cycle. I'm gonna put this to 0.9. Basically what that's gonna mean is, let's just move through the turbulence slowly. I do want it to be slow, if not completely stopped. So, there we go. Very cool. And while we're at it, I'm gonna say the density field is what it's gonna base off where to do it. Because there's not gonna be much density in the beginning of our simulation, I'm gonna say actually base it off of temperature. So wherever there is temperature, it's still gonna be applied to the velocity field. But because we won't have much smoke at the beginning of our simulation, I don't want it to not do this there. How did the turbulence get back to 1? Okay. So there we go. So it was doing some turbulence before. Now it should be doing more. It's so hard to see with this thing on. Get that out of here. Cool. So you can see it's tearing it apart even more. I'm thinking maybe it's too strong now that I'm looking at it. I don't want it to get too wispy. So a little pro tip is this timescale business here. It doesn't actually mean what you think it means. It doesn't have anything to do with how fast it goes through the simulation. What timescale actually does, and I can show you in here, it is just another scale to multiply by the total business. So here it is, timescale. It just multiplies it times the force that it calculated. So what does that all mean? It just means that if I don't want to change all of the values that I did here, you can actually just change this, and this number is being multiplied by this anyway. The reason why it's called timescale is because, as I described in the beginning of the lesson, the slower things move, the bigger they seem. And just in general, the more slow motion they seem. You know, if it's only applying half the velocity, then it seems like time is passing half as fast. So that's just me abusing that parameter a little bit. So in a nutshell, I just wanted to bring down the amount of force that this turbulence was applying into the sim. It's still going to have a pretty big effect on it, but not as crazy as it was before. In a minute, we're actually going to get back to our disturbances, which will break up these edges. But this turbulence is, again, is mostly going to be responsible for big movements on here that we will wedge later. Great. There it goes. Whee! Okay, so now let's get back to disturbances.